Hello everyone, welcome to episode 12 of Skill Issues, and yeah, this is a rolling start. I actually love it. Yeah, welcome to this 12th episode. It is a special one because we've got Jakub here to join us. Jakub, say hello. Yes, just
Hello?
say hello. Nice.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say hello. There you go, you can carry on.
I've got a confession to make, Jakub.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I saw your username on Twitter before we introduced ourselves or anything, I never knew how to pronounce it. I always called it atroooix, atroooix, because for some reason, I read it in French. What is the actual way of pronouncing your name?
So I don't really know.
Great
What?
start.
Genuinely, every time somebody asks me, I don't really know. I think kind of like depends on how. I don't know. I prefer when people pronounce it with the I, but then again, depending on like
Yeah, but how do
accent,
you
it's really
pronounce
hard
it
to
with the
pronounce.
I? Atroooix?
atroooix, yeah, that's kind of
Ah.
like one way. But then again, it depends how I feel. Sometimes I pronounce it differently, and it also adds a bit of mystery, you know, because everybody always asks, and then everyone's always confused. So it's
I feel
kind
less
of up in
bad
the air.
about it now. I feel less bad about it. Sweet. But yeah, we've got also one of our usual subjects. Hazza.
Hello.
What's up, bro? How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. It's been a busy week for both of us. Of course, last time it was left just you and me to pull the strings, but I felt like we had a pretty deep conversation about ourselves, so it was
Very
time to
true.
bring in some extra cavalry to get us through the next.
We're actually terrible at uploading that episode because we only just uploaded it minutes before we started this episode. So yes, we are still amateurs and still learning the way of podcasting.
Sure.
We did just expose ourselves by doing that. We could have also kept it a secret, but hey,
We
here's what it
beat
is.
the double digits allegations. We've reached episode 12. It's looking good. We've got a few on Spotify now as well, so rate it 5 stars if you're on Spotify. But yeah, you know, we're getting there, man. We're getting there.
Keeping it going, keeping it flowing. But yeah, talking about how busy we were and why we haven't really gotten around to uploading the previous episode and all of that, it's because we've been quite busy with everything that we've had on our hands. But before I go to what me and Hazza have been doing the past couple of weeks, Jakub, what have you been up to, man? What's been in your world?
So there's a few things. The number one favorite thing I've done is started playing Spike Ball. Have you ever heard of Spike Ball?
I know this one. It's
It
with
is
the
so
small
good.
ball and the trampoline,
Yeah.
right? Where you hit it.
Yeah. So you get a small trampoline, put it down in the middle, and it's a 2v2, and then you get 3 touches per team, and then you just gotta like slam the ball on the trampoline, and then it bounces, and it's like the best thing ever.
Is
So
that
that's what I've been doing.
IRL
Sick.
thing or game
Yes.
thing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually
Honestly,
cool.
In the last, I think, 3 months, I found myself just not being on the computer at all. I don't know, I'm kind of starting to lose like the passion for playing games. Oh yeah, that's Spike Ball right there, yeah. That's so good.
Sweet.
It is so good. Look at it. Look how
Yeah.
sick it is.
So
Was it like on
it's-
Lions Den on something or Shark Tank? I feel like I know it from something like that.
I don't know. I just know it because it's sick. I went to the park
Yeah.
and then these guys just played it and then I joined in and then now I bought it. So it's going to arrive
So,
tomorrow.
for the audio
Sweet.
listeners, just imagine a muddy patch of grass with 4 men, shirtless, maybe not shirtless, bouncing a tennis ball sized sphere into a very small trampoline. I've seen this before because I know that some football clubs, for example, train goalkeepers by doing this, right? Because you're using your hands all the time, you're staying active, you're not using your feet or anything. But
That's
to just jump
sweet.
in as well, I think this is my biggest takeaway of Jakub. Jakub is the kind of guy who, if he wants to do something, he'll just go and do it. So I wouldn't be surprised if you went and made like a full broadcast production for this and pitched it to creators in like a couple weeks' time. But yeah, just this is Mr. Sidequest basically.
To be fair, I did order the pro version of the net.
Okay.
And I only played it once.
Right.
But, and also, we're going to do a photo session to get some action shots. Because I think it'd
Nice.
be pretty funny.
So okay, just to lay out the lay of the lands for everyone. Obviously, we're going to get to know Jakub further on to the episode, kind of get into the ins and outs on what he does, who he is, and his work and all of that. But in the getting to know questions, I already had a particular question of him going all in when it comes to all of his hobbies. Like I feel every time I see him post on Twitter about anything he does, it just feels like you go all in every single time. Is that something that you've always done?
Yeah, and I think it's, I don't know, anytime I start doing something, I kind of just want to do it the proper way. And also, if
Okay.
I get into any sort of hobby, I kind of instantly want to have like everything to do with that hobby. And then I sometimes get bored like a week later or a month later, and then I just put it away. But when I start, I kind of just need to go all in to, I guess, kind of experience the whole thing. Like Dungeons and Dragons, for example. One of my friends, we played like a session, and it was so good. I think I bought. I mean, I literally have like a whole shelf of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 15 books behind me, and I
Damn.
haven't read most of them, but I just have them because they look cool on the shelf. And I mean, it's sick. Even made like a smaller to like display with like wood around it to have like a map rather than using like paper or whatever. My friend bought a 3D printer, so now we 3D print every miniature and paint them. Um, I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
I've always been like that, just randomly. To be fair,
that
yeah.
that runs
That's
me into my
cool.
question. Like, in the spirit of the weekly roundup, what does the day in the life look like? Because obviously, I can now kind of see why maybe you'd want to do things other than being in front of a screen. Because if you are just doing production stuff all day or something like that, you need your escape, right? So, what's the work-life balance for you in a typical work week, I suppose, for the top products
Mhm.
that Riot are putting out in the region?
Yeah, so now I normally work on like a single project, and depending if it's like a big major one or like a regular league, my schedule's different. So, for example, I'm doing the LEC, I'm on for 4 days, and then I have 3 days off. But now I'm going to be doing MSI, which is 17 days in a row, and then 1 day off, and then like
Wow.
another bunch of days. So usually what I would do is when I would go home and have a day off, just go into the city because I live pretty much city center. It's been really sunny, so I'll just explore, go get some food somewhere, hang out with friends, just listen to music. I started reading for the first time ever in my life. I never read
Wow.
books before, but I saw Dune and it was so good. I just literally bought the book and I've just been reading it. So
I have it
on my
too.
days off, yeah,
Just
I
for
literally,
context,
Yeah.
yeah,
how old are you, Jacob?
I'm 23.
23. Hey, our age.
23.
Damn.
This is literally the first book I've ever read, pretty much, not counting school. So I just started going to the park, just sitting there reading, biking there,
Yeah.
then going home, and then I'm like really bored because I have nothing to do. And when I play games, I hate playing them solo. I always have to play like something multiplayer. And because everybody's at work or casting or like doing something else, I literally don't have many games to play with people. So I just normally try and do other stuff. So I just end up just going outside, listening to music, go play spike ball, go play table tennis or something like that. Or just go like take photos, record a gig, maybe try and make some music and that kind of jazz. But I've kind of been losing the passion for kind of gaming, I guess, in my spare time, um, purely because I just prefer um, to be as social as possible. I have like a very large social battery, and I kind of always need to be around people like 24/7. Literally, Hazza can tell you if we ever went to an event, I would like wake up
This
really
is
early and
true.
we would just start going everywhere. I'd be like, oh, it'll take 10 minutes to go here, and then it'll take us like 2 hours, and then Kyra is complaining.
Yeah, look, Kairo's
I
Kairo's not
love
the
that.
walking guy, but I do agree, right? I can corroborate what Jacob is saying. He's
Yeah.
kind of like, oh well, if there's the time to get there and we can cram in between the first game, like League of Legends being played when we were at like Amazon Uni Masters in Nottingham, which is
Oh
like
yeah.
your hometown, right? So you know the
Yeah.
way around. You're like, we could just go to the castle or near it and find some Robin Hood related stuff because that's where the story is from. Dress you guys up and get some pictures. And I've been using those pictures for,
Yep.
like the last nearly a year or so, just because they're
That's
high
amazing.
quality. And it's just good fun. Like, you make the most of the time you have, right?
Yeah, and I remember while you guys were dressing up, I got a message from somebody working the production. Do you know where the casters have gone? And I'm like, nope, no
Yeah,
idea.
I just took them out of the building. Yeah, and then I'm
That's
sat there
brilliant.
in a Popeyes chicken restaurant with a green hat with a feather in it and and like a bow over my shoulder with one of those like suction cup things or whatever, and we were just walking it around the production the rest of the day as well. We were even going to intro the stream with it, but I don't think Amazon would have been too happy, so that didn't end up
Yeah,
happening. But
I don't think they would. But honestly, that my kind of schedule is just try and do as much stuff as I can. Go outside as much as I can because it's really
Yeah.
nice in the city center. There's water everywhere, beaches and stuff. So I just bike around, do whatever because people aren't usually online throughout the day. And then when I'm working, a lot of my friends are off. But then when I'm off, a lot of my friends are working. So it's pretty kind of hard to find that balance.
Yeah.
But I guess the TLDR is I try and pretty much go outside as much as I can because why not, Rather do something than just sit around and do nothing.
we commend you for your grass touching. I think it's pretty admirable from gamers. But yeah, nice.
Yep.
Yeah, moving away from gaming maybe, but you still have the passion and the geekiness to do everything and do it in a very all-in fashion, and I find that very respectful, respectable, very interesting. Yeah,
for a
go
second.
ahead.
A note that I did just spend, I think, the last 8 hours just playing Albion Online, so I'm also still,
Still a gamer.
addicted
Once
to
a gamer,
games, yeah.
always a gamer. You know, yeah, it never truly ever leaves forever, right? It's always.
I need
gonna
to
be
find
there.
the right one.
Yeah, fair enough. But we'll get back into all of that and discuss it. But we're still in the weekly roundup. So, Hazza, I know you've been up to a lot recently. You've done Red Bull LAN, the first. They claimed to be the first game female
Let's
esports
not get into
LAN,
that
though
part.
it isn't. Though it isn't. Anyway, but a really awesome Red Bull LAN. But you also did the Polaris finals, the Northern European VALORANT League finals this week. All this in just a few days. So how did everything go, man? That's a lot of casting.
It was good. There was a bit of a sort of scheduling shake-up. I think I can sort of shed light on that now, of course, right? With those kind of events in such close proximity to each other, especially for a league like Polaris that wants as many eyes on it as possible. That moved to the Monday, and with us working on both, it's always going to be an interesting one, especially when you do a weekend of competition. So for Red Bull, we got there on the Friday. Friday was just downtime. I was telling you before, this is the first time that I've invited my partner to come to an event with me, so it was quite nice to have them around. It was a very different vibe, but I felt like because I'd done all of the preparation for it in the week leading up to it, it didn't feel like there were any strings loose and I needed to sort of say, okay, I need to lock in, but they understood that because I was working. But yeah, the big detail that I would compare the two with is working in a studio and the positives that that has when you're next to your co-caster, being able to use hand signals, what the workflow is like, the fact that you can just speak to each other face to face, that there's a lot more emotion there. And then the sort of some of, not the negatives, but the things that I learned, like, for example, my notes, as I said, I'd done everything on Notion, but I printed them out on paper. And while having it all in front of you in a physical form with the printed images of all of the agents for the compositions and stuff, with it being a 3 duelist tournament, not the most necessary, but you had it there anyway, right, just for colouring in the gaps. And then trying to organise it on the desk in comparison to when I did Polaris the next day, and on my computer I can just scroll through it, it's all there, second monitor in the middle of commentating, and I've got the space for myself, and it feels a lot more comfortable and familiar, I suppose. So the difference in workflow was definitely interesting. In the emotion side as well, I feel like sometimes you almost got so much into it, but then having that relief maybe of Cairo bringing it down a notch or the other way around when you needed to and keeping the levels right was important. But again, it's all just a learning process for me. I think being around some of those players who don't get international lands, or at least they only get one a year, was really, really rewarding. And again, just seeing everyone and some people like Yinsu, for example, who I've not worked with in 4 years, but have kept up with over the last 6 months or so. It was really, really nice.
Sounds like you learned a lot in a very short amount of time, and that's
awesome. Yeah, I did, and I think as a team as well, we had quite a core team that was quite sort of strong together, I think it's fair to say. So you had Meg, who's pretty much running all the events and stuff. That's Meg Sounds Like Egg, content creator, involved heavily in the women's scene, for those who don't know. What are you doing with your life? And she was running the strings, right? But then she had Billy and Twiggy in as one of the commentary pairs, and then Cairo and myself as the other. And obviously, I know them, all of them. We get on well. We queue rank games in our spare time. It's a close-knit group. And then you bring in someone with as much experience as Yinsu as well, who was welcomed into that group pretty quickly. It makes for a very strong show overall, because it's okay, technical issue, we need to fill, something like that. We can just put on a mini award show for who we think has done the best of this and this and this over the weekend, right? I'm happy to admit that the top Instalocker section was just pure fill from me and Cairo, but it still made for decent entertainment. And with it being a different tournament, there was certain ways that you had to approach it which were different. No barracks HUD, no UI either, so you're a bit sort of left to your own devices in terms of pinpointing what was going on. But as I say, rewarding experience nevertheless. And look, to do another international LAN, I think is always going to be a positive. And it's just sort of like on to the next. What do you take from that, and what do you bring into your next one? It's always about the next gig. And that was sort of the Polaris Grand Finals the next day as well, which I felt even more happy with, I think, than the work we were putting in on LAN.
Nice. I'm really proud of you, man. Like, it sounds like
Thank
you're making strides in your career, and it's awesome to see. Learning.
I also feel like I'm just droning on. Like, there was just so much. You know what I mean?
It's awesome to hear, because you're saying things that I've gone through as well. All this note taking. Like, I feel like note taking has evolved so much throughout my career. Like, over the years, it's just changed the way I fundamentally approach prepping for a match. Whether that's line, whether that's online. What do I focus on? Was it storylines? How do I lay it out? What's my note taking? Do I handwrite it down because I remember it better? Do I have it arranged in a Google Sheet format because it's easier to find? Like, there's so many nuances to this, because you've got to be very quick to figuring it out. So it's nice to see you going through that process, slowly getting to do more LANs, you know, experiencing,
it's like weaving in the story aspects too as well. I think we had some really rich storylines when you have G2 and Shopify playing against each other, just at a base level. And like you say, just streamlining things. I've moved more towards like using tables that compare things rather than like just having one team, the other team, and sprawling points in a row. Like, if you can find a way to contrast and compare similar ideas that you have, that was always really good. And yeah, just making sure that it's cohesive from start to finish, because when you're there for 3 days, it's like very easy to find yourself repeating a lot of the same stuff. But if you can do it in a way that actually develops, then yeah, that's ideal.
Sweet. All right. Well, just to close out the weekly roundup, I'll also go ahead and say what I've been up to. Yeah. I went to Berlin again for VCT. Pretty solid stuff. Had 3 show days in total. Worked with Ash, worked with Tom as well this time around, which was nice. Good experience. And yeah, no, it was solid as ever. Hopefully I'm there again soon. I don't think there's much to add to there. It's VCT.
Well,
it's cool to be in tier 1 Valorant. Like, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to be there. So yeah.
What I could ask maybe is, you say you work with 2 different people. What was it like having someone as experienced as Tom sort of just come in on a dime, and how does that then affect your preparation, or how he sort of slots in a situation like that where it's maybe out of your hands?
Tom's a pro, right? And I know his cast, I know his work. And we're talking about Tom Biz, by the way.
And I love how Harry's just thrown a picture up of him eating a sandwich for the side profile.
Yes,
beautiful.
It's a picture I took myself right before we casted. Yeah, he's a pure pro. I know how he likes to approach matches, and how he likes to approach a cast and his philosophy around it, because he's also helped me VOD review as well. We've had plenty of chats about Valorant and casting in general, and we've already got decent chemistry because we've been casting the same league for a few years now. So yeah, it felt pretty natural, to be fair. And because he's a pro, I didn't feel like I need to assist him in any sort of way. He did his thing, I did mine, but we both did it together and enjoyed that match. And yeah, it was a beautiful moment, because it was also a beautiful match. Well, depending who you ask. For anybody in the Valorant world, it was Gentlemates versus Vitality. For anybody not in the Valorant world, never mind. It was a shit show. But yeah, that is it for the weekly roundup. I think it's time to get to know Jakub a little bit more.
Getting to know Jakub.
Getting to know him, Jakub. There's a particular reason Hazza just said getting to know him, because for all the audio listeners that can't see actually the background of Jakub, there is something lurking in the shadows behind him. Don't know if we can zoom in production for Mr. Harry Bow.
I'm just gonna
bring the gnome out. Yeah.
There you go. Here is one of them. There you go. Is in my house.
His face is burnt. What's up with that, Jakub?
So one day I was I guess I was kind of learning how to like produce shows back in the day in vMix, and I thought to myself, I know how to do replays, I know how to produce, but I've never casted. So I was doing a Halo show, and I started casting it with like another person, and it was really difficult because the feed we were getting was really laggy, and I had no idea what's going on. So I just started burning the gnome on camera because I didn't know what to do.
Oh my god! Desperation measures.
Well, so here it is. Wait, it's just
I think you've given a perfect opener here, though, Jacob. You said you've done production, you've done observing, you've done replays, you've done so many things, right? But if you could just explain in maybe 1 or 2 sentences, what do you do? If you could describe yourself in a way, how would you do that?
So I work in esports broadcast, esports specifically, nothing else yet. For now, I basically do a bit of everything, but mainly focusing on directing, technical directing, and doing replays. That's kind of my biggest focus. And then outside of that, whenever I'm kind of bored, I guess I try and extend my knowledge a bit and try and do a bit of other roles to like understand how everything works, so I can kind of upskill myself by knowing what everybody else does. I guess that's kind of the easiest way to explain it.
Sweet. Yeah, fair enough. Because you've been doing so many things. You've been in esports for how long exactly?
So in esports in total, since 2015, but in broadcasting since 2020.
What got you into broadcasting?
So broadcasting, so the reason I got into it was because I used to do a lot of video editing and graphics, and whenever I would go to a client and send them a video, they would give me feedback, and I would be like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to change this. It's stupid. And they're like, no, you have to. So broadcast in a way was for me to edit videos live, and then the client can't come back and say, can you change this? So that's genuinely the reason why I got into broadcast, because I hated like getting basically like feedback that I thought was like not good, and then having to change something for like the worse. So yeah, in broadcasting you can't really do that. It's always live, so you can't like go back on any mistake you make, and it's just permanently out there.
That's an interesting way of sort of like approaching it, I suppose. And I do very want to quickly rewind the whole gnome thing. That's going to have gone over plenty of heads and, you know, red pointed hats as well. Where did that actually start? Because I know as well you had the Gnome Council on Twitter for a tiny bit. You got me into pulling out my phone at Ascension to quote-unquote gnome everybody. There was the video going around that everyone remembers, you know, the hello, me old chum, you know, like that the baiting people into sending links. Where did the obsession begin, and why is it sort of like carried on so much? And how does that then tie into, you know, production for you?
So this started all the way back in 2020 with Medic from Rainbow Six. Medic and Easy, best observers that I've ever met in my life. Like, they're so good. And whenever we would work together, they would just send pictures of gnomes to each other. And I guess I kind of got roped into it, and I thought it was pretty funny. So we kept kind of trying to like up one another. So they sent me this gnome to my house. I got like an Amazon package with that exact gnome that I set on fire. And then we went to like extreme measures to gnome people. We even hired actors before to show up to somebody's house dressed up as a gnome.
You hired actors to show up people's homes as gnomes?
No way, man.
Yeah, there's been a lot of gnoming that's happened in the past. My proudest gnome though, if you know who Caliber Jacob is, when we were in Mexico, I basically got told that I got COVID during like peak COVID time when we were in lockdown in a hotel, and I had to go back to my room. So on the way up in the elevator to my room, the elevator was really dusty, so I wrote "get gnomed" on the elevator with like dust. And then I see like a tweet like half an hour later, like, who the fuck did this? And you can just put a picture of like the dusty gnome like on the elevator, but in reality that had all my COVID germs on it.
Oh my god.
This is Caliber Jacob, part of the American talent team for Rainbow Six, right? That was like a Rainbow Six event that you did. So I remember you speaking about it at the time, right? Because that was roundabout not long after you and I had actually first met. Did he end up getting COVID?
Nope, I was the only one out of the entire group, and then I was stuck in Mexico for 2 weeks in a hotel room.
Because I guess a good point to ask, like leading on from all of that, right, is that you said you started in 2020, roundabout when COVID was. So was that kind of like, you know, a hobby that spiraled into something more because of the conditions of the global pandemic, or not really? Because I think for me, my first broadcast was 2020. Pavlos, yours was like near on and enough.
2020,
similar kind of place, maybe.
But
I know
right before
you'll
COVID,
say, "Oh, I had
right
my
before
roots in
COVID.
2016," but you know, like
no, not really.
everyone started somewhere.
Yeah.
So, what was the deal with that, Jacob?
So for me, I kind of didn't know what to do because I did graphics and video editing, and I kind of wanted to pursue a career in like gaming and esports. Um, and I just didn't know what to do. I dropped out of school, dropped out of college, because I went to college. They basically, um, I was trying to learn some media stuff, learn Photoshop, and they said, "Oh, if you want to learn about this, just look it up on YouTube." So I said, "Why am I here? Let me just go home and just look it up on YouTube." So I just stopped attending, and then after that, I went to university, and it was kind of a similar case. And at university, I met a lot of awesome people, and I met this one person called Kevin, which our producer also knows, and where I also met Harry, our producer for the show. Um, and he basically just introduced me to broadcasting, set me up with some people to talk to them, and I started talking with them a little bit, kept in touch with them all the years. And then I did like some random OBS show doing a podcast like this, just interviewing people. And I kind of it just kept snowballing. That's kind of how it all began. I didn't really like intend to work in broadcasting. I just wanted to do something within like gaming and esports, and I always like loved it. I did like photography before. I traveled with a bunch of teams around, just filming content. And then, like I said previously, not liking to get feedback to edit a video at like 1 a.m. Instead, just do a broadcast where you can't really change anything that's happened because everything is live. You finish, then you go home. That kind of was like up my alley. So once I went to uni and I met Kevin, who was like the lecturer at the time, we were speaking a lot, and I kind of just learned from there. And then I just kind of went home and just did everything. And while it was like peak COVID time, I was just in my bedroom, locked away from going outside, just literally doing vMix every single day after I discovered it. And then I kind of got pretty lucky to meet some other people, and then kind of here I am. It just kind of snowballed since then.
It feels like you've got very deep passion and a very creative mind and a very all-in personality, which I'm just wondering where all this originates from, right? Is this something that you think your parents endorsed you, or was there some sort of an early memory that kind of sparked this whole journey that you've gotten? Because this is strictly you, Jakub. Like this whole energy that you bring to everything that you do is very Jakub. So where did that really come from?
I genuinely think it could be because of my parents. Because originally, when I lived in Poland, that's where I'm from, a city called Poznań, I was supposed to be a footballer. So when I was 3 years old, you could be signed up to go to like this football school where they like train children, and they basically give you like access to this school, and you train every single day to join the national and like the city football team when you're like 18. So I got accepted into that school from the age of 3. And literally, I remember just like walking to like the training. I was literally 3. I remember holding like my dad's hand, like going on like a little concrete like wall. You know how you would like, I don't know how to explain it. You know when you would like walk like somewhere really high.
When you were vertically challenged,
yeah,
much like our other
not
host
vertically
that
challenged.
You were in a
guess what
different
I'm
elevation. You were, yeah.
So, how do you call it? It's like a half wall. I don't know how to say it in Polish. I don't know how to say it in like English for some reason.
What's the word
It's
in
basically,
Polish?
I remember you know when you were a kid, you tried to always go like really high and not walk on the pavement and try and like jump on stuff?
When you try to balance on different things
yes.
and try to
Yeah,
I
jump
can see
from
where
rock to
this is
rock
going.
and-
This is
yeah?
like
Yes.
I should have been in the Spurs Academy, and then I pulled my
No, so
thyroid muscle. I don't know.
so basically, I the only memories I have is just walking like with my dad and my mum to those trainings, and I don't really remember much about the trainings themselves. And that's it. But I was supposed to just join like a football school and then just literally be trained the entire time up until I was 18 to play professionally as a goalkeeper. But then my dad got a job in England because he was a builder, and then somebody came and they're like, "Oh, come to England. You'll make like 1 million times more money to do less work." And he was like, "Okay." So he went over, and then he was like living over here, and I was in Poland, and I was 6 at the time. And then it was kind of difficult for him to be traveling all the time, so my parents just said, "Let's just move to England." So we moved over, and I started playing a bit of football in like the under 8s, and then under 9s and under 10s. And then I discovered gaming pretty much. I got my first laptop and my Xbox 360. And ever since that happened, I gained a bunch of weight, stopped playing football, just literally played games all the time. And I guess I kind of
That's crazy.
been like that since. When I got into something, I would just go ham. And I guess it could be kind of that when I was growing up. when I was supposed to be a footballer, I guess I was just kind of forced to go like full in, just do a bunch of training, and then I was supposed to be my life. And ever kind of since when I did stuff, it was kind of similar. When I got into like the Xbox for the first time, I was just full on sweating it all the time. Then when I got a PC, got a laptop, and I discovered Minecraft back in the day when the website looked really bad. I remember downloading it and I tried to like be a YouTuber, and then I would like download Hypercam and start like filming videos
Yeah.
on my really really bad laptop, and I kind of went all in on that for a while. And I guess everything I discovered since then kind of just kept going all in and all in on all in, and I kind of still do the same thing. But now I have the money to go all in even more.
Yeah.
So it's pretty dangerous.
Call
That's
him
fair.
Mr. All-In Atroooix. And you're telling me that there's a butterfly effect where we're interviewing Lewandowski here instead, and you're the one playing for the
Fun
Polish
fact.
national team.
Fun fact: my dad built one of his houses in Poland.
Wow.
Nice.
Back
That
in the
is
day.
a really cool fact. So that's the all-in aspect of it.
Hmm.
But what is the ability to pursue your dream part of it? And not follow the norm, not follow the trend. Is that something that your parents, kind of allowed you to take, or is that something that you developed yourself?
Yeah, so my family has never been like very restricting on me doing anything. Anything I wanted, I always pretty much had. I was like lucky enough to do that. We didn't really have much money growing up, but I didn't feel that because I guess they would make sacrifices to make sure I had what I wanted. And because I gamed a lot, I had my laptop, my Xbox, and I was just on that all the time. I didn't really
Yeah.
feel it any other way. Um, how can I explain this? I don't know. I'm kind of losing my train of thought.
Hmm. You had all of the resources in front of you to
Yes.
succeed to the level that you
Yes.
wanted to, right?
Yes, exactly. And when I told my mom I wanted to do something, they would allow me to do that. When I told them I want to stop attending like the college because I'm not learning anything, they're like, okay, as long as you know what you're doing. So they kind of just giving me that trust the entire time. Same with my brother, same with my sister. They've kind of been allowed to do whatever they wanted, and they've never pushed back on anything. And everyone's kind of been successful in their own ways. Like my brother, he's done Warhammer painting his entire life, and now, when he was, now he's like 32. He still does it pretty much non-stop, and him and his friend like travel the world to compete. And they're the
Wow.
number 1 players in the world. They like win like painting competitions all the time. My sister wanted to be a hairdresser, so my parents kind of helped her to do that. And then that didn't really work out, so now she works as a social worker. But anything kind of me or my brother and my sister wanted to do, my parents didn't really restrict us. I guess when we kind of moved over to England, they kind of let us have whatever life we wanted. And because also we were the ones translating everything for our parents, I guess they didn't really have much of a say in a lot of stuff. Because
Right.
we could always like
Wow.
tweak things the way we
You
wanted
just
it.
sort of make up, like,
Um,
yeah,
just
actually, I'm
manipulate
reading this sign here,
everything.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it says that, you'd always get like, what was it, where Pokemon came from, the little balls that come in the machine,
Yeah.
and it gets you a toy. Like, oh, actually, it says that it's cheaper than you think it is. You maybe just sort of get me one of them. I wouldn't mind that.
Hey,
Yeah, so it's
McDonald's
pretty much
looking
like that the whole
pretty
time.
cheap today,
Yeah. Tell you what, yeah, no, the
Yeah.
the inflation, it's changing everything.
Yeah, so it was like that pretty much the whole time. And then eventually, when I started playing and like meeting people like online, I was playing PUBG, and at that time I made like a lot of like YouTube videos for like Minecraft and like Terraria and stuff, and I still have them, but I will not share them with anyone because they're too cringe. I met someone in a PUBG game, and then we like became friends. And then turns out the guy had a company that did content and like photography and videography for teams like Rogue, Turkish team called Besiktas.
Wow.
You're also like a football team. And he said to me, "Hey, do you want to like learn how to do this like in esports?" And I'm like, "Of course I would." So I did like a small little internship with the guy. I traveled to events. I met another random guy from Australia playing PUBG, and we created like an org. I was like doing all the graphics for it, learning. And one of the players who was actually part of that org, she now plays. Well, she played with FlyQuest and CLG, Red. Someone called BB She's like an insane player. So she actually started in a team that I worked on in like 2018 in Australia, just because I met some random dude in like a game. And when I started getting all those connections, I told my parents like, "Hey, they want me to go to this event in London, but they're not covering any travel or anything. Like, we have to pay for it. And they're like, are you sure? So I was like 17 at the time. I just went to like a random hotel in London. I went did the Face It London major. I think it was 2018. And I went there to like film content for Rogue and a bunch of random stuff. And that was just me telling my parents, like, trust me, I'm doing something like really cool. And they had no idea what esports was. They just kind of let their kid go to like London alone, just like with some random group of people, to just film stuff. And when I came back and I got paid for that, they kind of saw that it was kind of like real, I guess. So everything I did from that point on, they kind of just let me to do my thing. Like when I told them I don't want to go to college anymore, they were pretty much telling me to finish it, but I just stopped attending and I just stayed home. When I went to uni, I told them that like I'm gonna drop out because it's not making sense for me to be here, and they're like, do whatever you want. So they've just kind of allowed me to do what I want, and I guess that was kind of pretty beneficial for me because I never had the pressure of like needing to do something. And I guess because of that, I'm also pretty careless now, and I just don't care enough about things. I feel like I kind of have a very bad mentality of I'll just do whatever the heck I feel like doing, and I kind of don't think about the future. So like
buying
Living
5
I
Dungeons
don't
and
worry.
Dragons books, even though it empties the bank
Well,
account.
it's more of a thing that I do not worry about getting my next gig ever. I don't worry for stability. I could literally just, when I was freelancing, I just did an event, and then I didn't care afterwards if I'm going to get another event or not. I just kind of went for what I wanted to do and what I liked doing, rather than always thinking that, oh, I need to be like stable, have like a stable income. I just didn't care at that point. I just kind of wanted to just experience things and just live life, I guess.
I was
And
just
I
about
kind
to
of,
say,
yeah.
like,
Wow.
17-year-old doing photography, classic rogue management, by the way, like of all of the orgs. But yeah, no, it does
To
sound
be
pretty
fair,
sick.
the agency that I worked with scammed me, and I didn't get paid for a majority of my stuff.
That's not
Yeah,
But
ideal.
it's no fault of the teams who hired the agency. It was just a dodgy agency. But that's, I guess, what happens when you meet a guy on PUBG and.
Yeah, okay. I love
Yeah.
how it sort of twisted like that. Oh,
Yeah.
well, you could meet a person in your ranked game that will help you
Yeah.
do this, or you could get scammed. It's one or
Yeah,
the
but
other.
I got all the experience from that.
That's
you know?
very
So
true.
Great learning experience.
It kind of reminds me of back like a couple years ago when Knights were starting out in Valorant 2 and they had like the 13-year-old essentially the Valorant equivalent of Craigslist producer, which is like broadcast GG for anyone who cares, like hiring the guy to go and do that stuff. But yeah, it's a
remember.
process, right? And like if you don't get your start somewhere, then where do you begin, you know?
Yeah, and me actually getting my first gig was completely random as well. I was playing Valorant beta, and I actually was in the Valorant looking for game discords, and I actually met Hypoc back then.
Okay.
Because I would go on the Valorant LFG during the beta, and I just queued with random people.
Well, he was a
And
PUBG guy as well, wasn't he? Like
He was a PUBG pro player and then gone analyst.
caster.
Yeah, and then I met a random person who was an admin for this ESL UK like tournament that was happening. And I said, oh, your profile picture was really cool. Like, do you like working esports or whatever? And he's like, yeah, I do. We're actually opening a company and we need like some producers. And I'm like, oh, I really want to get into that. I just started learning vMix. And then I got like an email like a week later saying, hey, we need a Rainbow Six producer who like knows vMix. And I'm like, oh, I have really high experience with Rainbow Six. And then I went and did that, and that's where I met like everybody, like Ian, and
Ian
basically
Chambers?
all the other, Ian Chambers. Like my first ever show was his like first esports gig essentially.
Oh wow.
So we kind of both started like right at the beginning, and we've been friends since. But it all came very randomly, just meeting random people. Literally every opportunity I ever got was meeting somebody random in a ranked game, either on PUBG or Valorant. And even on League of Legends, I think 2014, I was playing a game of League, and Michael Odell, who's the owner or founder of Dignitas, he was playing, and his in-game name was DIGOD, and he was playing a character called Cogmore. And I wrote in the chat to him, oh yeah, there's no way you're on Dignitas, why are you rocking that name? And he's like, check the Facebook page. And I went on the Facebook page, and he posted a screenshot of like us being in the game, and I was like, oh my god. And,
Oh my
and
lord.
and that happened in 2014, and literally not too long ago, he mentioned that he's like coming over to Ireland, and we're gonna say hi and stuff. But like, I met so many random people just by playing games such like a long time ago, and it's just kind of crazy. It all
That's-
kind of started just completely randomly, and I guess just spiraled out of control
mad.
afterwards.
That's so crazy, man.
Yeah.
Because the thing is as well, it's like no way you got,
got something crazier.
checkmated on a fucking Facebook page of
I
all
got
places.
something crazier.
Go on.
Okay.
How long do you think I've known Lofar for? Or
Oh,
has known me,
he's
kind of.
Polish as well, so
He's
could
Polish
be like
and he's
your...
been playing
What if he
Hearthstone.
was
He
the
was a
football
Hearthstone
coach?
pro, right?
old do you
Lothar
think I
was the
was?
football coach that coached
old?
you in
Wait, if you got
Poland.
into esports at 15, I'm just going to say the youngest you could possibly
I think
be.
you,
How
s-
old?
you
So I'd
told
say
me
15,
this
15,
before.
15.
How old was I when I met Lofar, do you think?
I say
I'm
15.
gonna say like 12 maybe, because I think I've heard this before.
5.
What?
5.
How?
So my
Family
brother,
friend? Is Poland that small?
Nope. So my brother was painting like Warhammer and collecting miniatures, and he would always take me with
Oh.
him. And because I was like 5 years old, everybody would always give me free miniatures, and then I would give them to my brother afterwards. So we were just like pulling, like just rinsing the shop every time.
That's so cute.
And Lofar was the manager of that shop.
Oh, really?
That's so funny.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
What a
he was the manager
story.
of that shop back in the day.
All right. Oh, that is
But
so
yeah,
cool,
look,
though.
I mean, the
Yep.
big takeaway though is you never know who you're going to bump
That's
into
true.
and where that ends
Yeah.
up going. Because to sort of bounce
Kids,
off
be
what
aware
you
of
said,
creeps on the internet, but you could also meet some really cool people.
true, know when to read the room, which isn't easy,
Yep.
No.
especially in esports. But like what you said with Ian, the first gig I did 4 years ago was with Yinsu hosting, and I got that just because I asked people like, "Yo, I would like to commentate the game or at least speak about it. I feel qualified enough." It was like a startup uni league with just random people on it, and literally, I was speaking to her after the show at Red Bull Instalock, and she was just like, "Yeah, well, look, we're both here now, so." There you have it, right? You can start anywhere. And sure, she may have gone on and done multiple S-tier events, but we're getting there, right? You know what I mean? If you don't put your hat in the ring, if you don't put your name in the hat to put the hat in the ring, then you're not going to get a chance.
And put your name in the
So-
goblet of fire. Sorry.
He
But
said
yeah.
calmly.
He said calmly. Dumbledore said calmly. I wanted to roll back a bit to what Jakub was saying earlier with the freelance work. Wait, you just okay for the audio listeners? Our
This is
producer
the
Haribo has
Liquipedia
just
page.
brought out the Liquipedia page of the first ever event that Hazza has ever done.
Wait, I played in this when it was first starting. Harry, do you remember?
No.
Were you on the team?
This is such a
With
small world.
Okay, so I got an ace in its first ever tournament of the UK Valorant thing before it got. Some other company took it over, right? Or some other org?
Newell bought the rights
Yes.
for UKV to be so
No.
UK Valorant to be hosted on its own page.
Yes.
But after that happened, people started playing it less, I think, and then it eventually died. So that was actually a pretty. That was a power play from Newell. They just
Wow.
Agario'd the shit out
Yeah,
of it
yeah,
and
yeah.
just absorbed the whole thing.
Yeah, the first ever iteration of that tournament, we entered with our university, and then I got an ace, and then my team kind of sucked.
And then you quit university.
Yeah. But I got an
so-
ace. I got an ace. It was great. It
Then
was with a ghost.
Man,
bragging rights are all that matter at the end of the day. Got an
it's all
ace.
connected. It's all
It is.
connected.
It really is. Back to your freelancing, because you said you never
Mm-hmm.
worried about much. Kept on going from one gig to another and enjoying your time. How did you from freelancing go to now having a full-time job working on Riot products over in Dublin?
Mhm.
How did that happen? How did that transition go from freelancing, doing everything
Mm.
at a really
Mm-hmm.
pretty high level and with really big organizers to then limiting yourself to an exclusive contract, a full-time contract? I'm not quite sure if it is an exclusive contract,
It's full time, yeah.
but
So,
it's definitely full-time.
yes. So my goal so I started playing League of Legends in 2011, purely because my brother played League, and I always played games because of my brother, and he was like a massive TSM fan back in the day, and I also became like a huge TSM fan since 2011, and I've like followed them the entire time. And I watched them play League like religiously every single match they ever played. I always like downloaded like clips and put highlights on YouTube of like their games and stuff. And I loved League completely. But that was the one game that was completely inaccessible of working in it as a freelancer in Europe. It was so difficult unless you were living in Germany, which I wasn't. I basically had no contacts to work in that, and I just did Counter-Strike and everything. And my one goal that I always told everybody back in the day was I really want to work with Riot. I want to work on League of Legends. That is my number one goal in like my career. Like that is like the end goal. And one day, a producer called Sam Deans, I used to work with him a lot. My first ever in-person event was with Sam Deans. It was Flashpoint 2 for Counter-Strike. And he was the TD there at the time, TD and director, so he wasn't producing the show. And I met him there for the first time. And I was doing VMix replays. I was making like memes and whatever, like random segments for the show. And there was an EVS operator, and EVS is basically like a replay machine that's used in like broadcasting, a very high level, and it's really hard to get into. And there was an EVS operator there, and I started kind of like watching what the guy was doing and like learning from him. And I went up to Sam Deans after the event, and I'm like, one day I'm gonna be your EVS operator. Like I'm gonna learn, and then we'll meet each other again. And fast forward,
What did he say to that? Like, who the fuck
he's
can you
like,
get
yeah,
away from?
he's like, we'll see. Yeah, that was literally the first time I ever met
He's
him.
like, yeah, kid, you got a
Yeah.
dream. Shut the hell
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
What are
literally.
you on about?
It was the first time I met him, and we also like spent a lot of time together because we were in. This was peak COVID time, so we were locked down in the Twickenham Stadium. So we worked on that event, and that's also where I met Prius. I became really good friends with the DJ from that event because I would always send him pictures of like the hotel food we had, which was incredible. It's the best food I've ever had at an event in my life. The best, because we had
Which
like
hotel?
Twickenham Stadium. We had the chefs from the rugby team cooking for us.
Okay.
Wow.
It was sick. It was so good. And basically, fast forward, I learned how to do EVS, started doing events, and then me and Sam Deans met sometimes doing events just randomly. And then one day, I get the message, so, do you want to do EVS for me? And I'm like, of course, I would love to. And he's like, yeah, this is for VCT. And I'm like, I would kill to do like a Riot product. And he's like, yeah, there's only one kind of caveat to this. You got to join full time. Here's the application. So I went and applied. I was like, screw it. I really want to work on Riot products. And then I applied, and then I got called back within a few days, got offered the job, and then I had a month and a half essentially left until I had to move to Dublin. So the last thing I did, because I was like, okay, I have one more event to do before I'm going to go full time. I went to do EPL with ESL because I had a lot of my good friends were producing the show. Somebody called Simon Bond, who also did Flashpoint with me. And I went to do content there. So I filmed a bunch of like ridiculous content pieces, kind of as my last freelance event.
Yeah,
I just
the,
partied every day.
The,
so
if
much
you
fun.
blow the cock, it'll make the guys come.
Wait, that was you?
Yeah, there was like a
that
golden.
was specifically that bit wasn't me.
golden
but
cock.
I was helping do all the
Oh
content
my
there.
God.
So
like a trumpet.
we were basically filming everything. We did like robot wars where we attached knives from the hotels, like catering into like robots. We did like just ridiculous content. We did like archery PvP with like a HUD that we designed. It was sick. Had so much fun. I just literally partied every day, and that was my last kind of like event. And then I moved to Dublin and kind of been here for a year and 4 months now, which has been a while. But the only reason I kind of moved over and went full time was because my goal of working on League of Legends, and that was kind of like my end career goal. And I thought it would take me a lot longer than it did, but yeah, I went to this purely because for the love of League of Legends, and that's it.
I was just about to ask, and before I get to the whole moving to Ireland part, something I will say is you've made quite a lot of good videos that'll just pop up on Twitter or maybe even YouTube at times where it shows the behind the scenes of working an EVS machine, for example. So for those who don't know what it is, and you already explained it a bit, you have the multiple knobs and you twist it and it sends you forwards and backwards and you've got a clip and stuff like that. And working that software and seeing what it's like behind the scenes and how complicated it is. And I know that Sam Deans, who you mentioned as well, also has videos of him, you know, like directing a show from behind the scenes and saying, okay, working with your league ops to get people to go up on stage, and when are we having, you know, I think they call it like, is it the voice of God and stuff come through in the venue, and you know, cutting to different cameras and stuff. So that's really interesting. And yeah, to just sort of jump in, go check out that behind the scenes stuff if you're interested in getting into production and what that involves. But to spin it back to what I was saying, yeah, you moved to Ireland for that though, and that's a pretty big jump for someone who was in the Midlands for most of his life, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I kind of lived in hotels for the last 2 years before doing that.
That's
So I
true.
wasn't really afraid of traveling. I would literally go from hotel to hotel to hotel, and then I would go home for like a week, and then I'd just like travel out again. So I wasn't really afraid of going anywhere, and I love traveling. It's like the most important thing I feel like in life, just exploring any culture you can and just going out there and just traveling. Because it's like if you're in Europe, it's so cheap. Even if you don't have a lot of money, just like save up for like 2 months and you can spend 300 euros to go to like Greece, literally like stay in Athens, really cheap, explore everything, and then fly home, and then it won't cost you more than like 300 euros. It's
Mm.
so cheap and it's so nice, and you can do that everywhere.
I was
So I
just
really
about to
recommend. Yeah,
say, yeah, because that does remind me of when Cairo and I actually came to somewhere that isn't very cheap,
Mhm.
Copenhagen.
Yeah, Copenhagen.
You were nice enough, and I guess we can say it now, to open
Yep.
your doors to the hotel room, which you really shouldn't have with the production company that you were contracted to, which meant you were sleeping on the sofa, and then Cairo
Yeah.
and I were in the bed, and I've still got a video of us when Cairo was fast asleep, like snoring with his arms crossed. You know, like when guys go to sleep, they look like a dying Victorian child. It was like that with him with the flu. And we flipped around the video of his like commentating reel, and we were like, "Oh, Cairo, what do you think?" And it's just him like fast asleep. But yeah, like you literally told us to come out to that because you were working an event while Masters was on at the same time to just go there. And yeah, I think like traveling and experiencing all these different things, whether it's in esports or outside of it, is super important.
And I'd like to know that I am a self-rated best tour guide in esports in Copenhagen.
Yeah, true, but is that just for food or is that for everywhere?
Everything.
Because you always be
Everything.
like, "Oh, this is the best burger," and then like the next event we go to, it's like, "Oh, well,
Okay,
this
I
is
need
the
to bring
best
something up.
burger."
I need to
Okay.
bring something up. The best burger in Copenhagen, place called Popple Burger. It was made by some of the people who made Noma, the best restaurant in the world, #1, multiple
Yeah, I
Michelin
know about
stars.
it. Yeah.
We went there, and you know what Cairo did when he bought the burger? He took off everything that was a vegetable. He took off the lettuce. He took off like
No.
the red onions. He took off the tomatoes. He just had the
No.
meat. He even took off the sauce. He just had bun and like beef.
Jacob, you
No.
know
And
what the saddest part about this is as well? I actually went down the pipeline of watching like food videos on YouTube recently. So I didn't really know how good Noma was, but I started watching this guy, I don't know if you know him, Alexander the Guest. He goes to all of these
do not
really
know him.
expensive places. Like this Hungarian guy, he's like, "So I got the wine pairing. It's going to cost you like 300 euros. The texture was really..." And now knowing that that was related to Noma just makes
Yes.
me even more upset.
Yes, and then he said
Oh
it
my
sucked,
God.
and I said, "What do you mean you took off every ingredient?" He then went in another place and ordered. I will never forget this because I am so mad to this day. We went to a restaurant. It was me, Cairo, and another friend of mine. His name's Javier Monster D-Face, Fortnite caster. So we were doing FNCS at the time, and Cairo visited for Valorant. So we went out together, and we went to this really nice kind of a cafe. And Cairo ordered a seafood salad, and then he complained there was too much salad and too much greens. And I said, "Cairo, you ordered a salad. You ordered a salad."
Oh
And every time we
my
would go
God.
somewhere, he'd take off every ingredient that was the best. We literally went to such good food spots, and he'd take everything off and say, "This sucked." Unbelievable.
Ah,
This is
well,
still
I
rent free in
love
my
just
head
putting him
to
on
this
blast.
day.
Man.
Well-
It's great. It's great.
we love you, Cairo, but I didn't know this about your palate.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Well, it's a good thing that when you,
Judgment.
me, and Cairo had breakfast in Berlin during Ascension, that we went to somewhere where they were serving croissants instead of, any
Yeah,
kind
like,
of.
any kind of English breakfast.
Well, I don't really know. To him, it's a Scottish breakfast anyway. So
That's fair. That's very fair. Well, I think we've gone full circle here. Well, not really full circle. We've gone a complete tangent, but I kind of want to draw things back a bit. The
Mhm.
last thing we mentioned is your move to Dublin,
hmm
working at Project Stryker. Now, I've worked at Project Stryker, both in location and remotely.
hmm
Hazza, I think you've only heard of them and what they do. But
Yeah.
Jacob, you've worked with them the most, given that you're full-time
Yeah.
there every single day. That's your work environment. So give everyone kind of the ins to what Project Stryker is, because it's something quite new to the esports broadcasting world and quite an ambitious project, I'd say.
Yeah, so if you go on to, honestly, there's a lot of like technical details and everything already out there in numerous articles. So even if you Google something like Project Stryker Dublin, It will literally come up everywhere on social media and on a bunch of like various tech articles that kind of explain stuff more in technical detail. But essentially, it's just a remote broadcasting center, which is now powered by AWS. So yeah, remote broadcast center, and it kind of works like the BBC does. Essentially, we are in one place. We receive video feeds. We put the whole broadcast together, and then we send it out to multiple platforms. So we all stay in one location. We don't have to travel, and things just randomly appear. So it's kind of just like doing a remote broadcast from your home, but inside of a really sick studio with like the best equipment there is, and like high grade everything, a constant crew between like all of the shows, and it's like such a good atmosphere. You just get to work with the same people all the time that like become more than friends, like basically family at this point. Just
Yeah.
spending like nearly every single day with like the same people, and it's just like an awesome experience pretty much. But essentially, it's just a remote broadcasting center. A bunch of feeds get sent in, a bunch of feeds get sent out, and we basically do all the broadcasts there.
Okay.
And that's stuff like LEC, VCT, MSI. If you watch any of
Brilliant.
the League of Legends shows or VCT sometimes, we sometimes put the camera from the studio at the end of the show, and then you can see like the whole gallery and the building at the end. So it's like a small hidden thing we do at the end of the show for some people who carry on watching. Um, but yeah, we do a lot of stuff from there, and it's just kind of a way to do all the broadcasts without traveling. So yeah, you can see there, for anybody listening on Spotify or wherever else this is uploaded.
It's a
There's a
big
picture of
empty
the
room with Jacob sat with a lot
exactly.
of buttons in front of him.
Yeah, so just a big button presser, and that's the Striker building. And we essentially can do any show we want from there, which is nice.
I was just gonna ask, like, in terms of what you guys are actually responsible for, then, because I know there is still production crew on the ground in Berlin for a lot of
Mhm.
these things. And again, another image up on screen with a fuckload of buttons, and I only know what a
That's a
couple
lot
of
of
them
buttons.
do, and monitors as well. Like, yeah, it's like, what are you responsible for? Because I know that there's certain stuff like related to the feed, for example. So for people who know what the HUD is like in VCT and the Valorant top games, like looking at what the UI is like and stuff like that, and extra little things that you guys have done, like mixing in cameras from the venue and then also having in-game elements on top, or little lower thirds with extra information. I know that you guys work with all of that, but is that sort of just the means to an end, or how exactly does that work?
So the whole thing is just assembled here, pretty much. Like the whole show, like the whole complete thing is just assembled here. We just receive all the cameras, we receive all the gameplay and stuff like that. So we just kind of build it all here. So we're kind of like, I guess, a TV truck that normally would be outside of a venue, but we're just in one place here. So everything is just assembled in the one place. So we're like a complete kind of package, I guess I could say.
Yeah, because I mean, you've done stuff like that before, right? You were working
Mhm.
Red Bull Homeground when they did it in Manchester, and you were actually in
Yeah.
the truck, and you were gnoming people in the truck as well.
Oh yeah, nobody really noticed. But Ginny actually interviewed me when I was doing replays on the event, and I named one of the clips "Get Gnomed," and it like showed up on the stream, but nobody noticed yet. So if anybody ever goes back to watch it, it is there hidden.
That's
Um,
funny.
yeah, there's a bunch of like Easter eggs hidden around, but yeah, it's basically like a TV truck, but just in person.
That's right.
And I kind of prefer working in TV trucks because it's, I guess, it's just packed and it's just fun to like just everybody to just be packed in one room and then everybody just goes crazy at the end of the day.
Hmm.
I kind of prefer that vibe.
Yeah,
But
I
do
mean,
you miss anything from your freelance life now that you've kind of gone into that Project Stryker studio? You've also changed roles, so
Mhm.
you can touch up on that as well, because you did do
Mhm.
EVSing, but now you're doing, I want to say directing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so I went,
explain that role switch and what that
mhm.
means.
Yeah, so before when I was freelancing, I basically did a little bit of everything. I did a lot of replays. I did that numerous times for a few ESL events with Blast. I directed the world feed for Fortnite, for example, and TD'd. TDing is technical directing, it's the button pressing, and directing is basically just calling which camera to go to, when to throw up the graphics or whatever. So you kind of are in charge of the creative output of the show. Um, Comparing it to producers, and producers usually just kind of give you the vision and then you execute the vision as a director, essentially, to make everybody aware of what the roles do. Um, but yeah, I did a mixture of everything back in the day. And when I kind of came to Striker, I started doing replays on EVS. That was my main thing. I worked VCT EMEA doing a lot of replays for the whole season. I did a bunch of replays in Tokyo, Champs, LA, a lot of like reaction shots. That would probably be me doing them. And over time, as I kind of started doing more and more and more, TDing was something I always wanted to move on to doing and directing because there's more of a career path there, and you're kind of in charge of more of the creative vision, and you have more impact on the show rather than just showing replays. So I started training in TDing. I already directed previously, so I did a few events. For example, LCQ last year for VCT EMEA. So I worked with Sam. Then again, he was producing, I was directing, which was a lot of fun. And now it's my official title. And now pretty much the only thing I'm doing is technical directing and directing. So I'm not
Wow.
really doing replays anymore, sadly, which I love.
Okay.
It's a ton of fun, but career-wise, for me, what I'm doing now is like a lot better. But essentially, I'm just pressing all the buttons now. If you see something break on screen, usually that could mean that could be me pressing a wrong button. Hasn't happened yet, which is good. Haven't made any major fuck ups, which is nice. And yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, I'm just kind of more doing the button pressy rolls. Very different to what I
We
started
lost
with.
the replay goat to the buttons, man. It's actually a shame
Oh.
because you were doing all of like the VOD review and stuff behind the scenes, like 2x speed, just looking at the end of round replays rather than anything
Yeah.
else, is what you told me. But also, you had a really interesting story, I think, about like Tokyo, for example, that you mentioned there, because you were working on the product from Stryker already, I believe, but then it was like a very quick turnaround. All of a sudden, you were out there, right, on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, basically, I was asked, "Hey, do you want to go to Tokyo to do this event?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay. When? Now? Okay, cool. Let me just go to the airport." And because the studio is like 10 minutes from the airport, yeah, I was on the next flight within 4 hours. Flew there, um, landed at 6 p.m. after 21 hours of travel because I went Dublin to Dubai and then Dubai to Tokyo with layovers. So 21 hours total it took. Second I landed, went to the venue for rehearsal. I didn't need to go in, I just went because I wanted to.
Mm.
Had a bunch of Japanese barbecue. Then I went to bed, woke up at 4 a.m. when the trains opened up, took the train to the city, explored for as long as I can. Then I took the taxi to the venue, did the show for the whole day, and then we finished pretty early, like 5 or 6. So then I did that again, started traveling, just took the train to the city, got home at like midnight, repeated that the next day as well, and then the next day it was finished, and then I had to fly home. So I essentially had like one full day of like exploring Tokyo, but it was like a very last second thing because I needed to just cover somebody, but I wasn't working on the event originally
Right.
because I was working on some other projects. But it was a ton of fun, and I loved it, and I would happily do it again.
Damn.
I mean,
I
look,
mean-
you're not going to turn up the opportunity to go to Japan, and I can see why you'd
No.
be getting up early
Yeah.
to, like, go and explore as well. But
Mhm.
no, it's crazy the opportunities that you can get like in a split second. Because I don't know, Pavlos, I've heard about other commentators even as well be like, "Oh, well, we're doing an event that you've not heard of before, and do you want to go to Sweden like tomorrow?" I think didn't someone that you know at least have something similar with that? I think Ryan did.
Yeah, it was something similar with me. He got the gig. He got the same gig that I got, my first studio event.
Mm-hmm.
He got the same gig I got, but just a few months later because I don't remember. I think I wasn't available or something, but still. Anyway, like that opportunity opened up for Ryan to do the same thing. But yeah, it happened to me as well. Kremer, my old duo, messaged me. Look, this guy from Challenger Mode messaged me. There's this event in Sweden. It's next week. It's in a couple of weeks. Let me. Do you want to come and cast this with me? It's gonna be me, you, and Tenchi, this Swedish guy.
Was this with PXB?
It was with Asex and Challenger. It was the
Ah.
Snooze company back when
Oh,
Snooze.
okay.
Was
dude.
this wait? Was the studio in like an abandoned hospital downstairs?
Abandoned hospital? I don't think so, mate. It was this weird studio in outskirts of Stockholm.
Oh,
It was like an industrial area of Stockholm. Yeah. It's the weird studio in the middle of
Scandinavian
nowhere.
event sponsored by Snus? Surely
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
That
I haven't
never
seen.
happens.
I haven't seen events.
It's
sponsored
almost
by
like if you
Snus ever
know
since, though,
what the
to be fair.
lyrics for Easy for Ents are, it's literally talking about putting snus on your upper lip, which is
Yeah.
insane when I
Yeah,
found
crazy
that out.
times.
But yeah.
But yeah, well, you're right, Hazza. Like things can happen at any point, at any moment, depending who you know and how long you know them for, and you could be doing things forever, and at some random point, an opportunity arises. And I feel that's the same thing for you, Jakub. But you've had such a good job with communicating, not the word, by networking, by meeting people, and actually enjoying the company of people. That I think that process has also been quite naturally. Came quite naturally for you. So I've got a question. I think it's the best way that we could possibly finish this podcast, right? For anybody that's tuned in, the likelihood is that they're either interested in the scene, they know us, right? But also another likelihood is that they don't know us, they don't know much about the scene, and they want to learn, right? And they want to learn, is there a potential of them making it into production, into EVS, into replays, into anything that has to do with the back end of esports? Do you have any advice for someone that is interested in getting into something like this?
Yes. The number one rule: don't be a dick. That is like the global rule of completely everything.
Yeah.
Everything you say to anybody will always stay and travel
Yeah.
because esports is a very small industry. And pretty much everybody you work with has probably worked with somebody you've already worked with or will work with. It is so connected. And word travels very fast. So be as nice as you can to everybody. Be genuine. Don't kind of try and use people. And if you want something from somebody, just be straight up. Don't kind of try and be like, hey, what up? How are you? And then 10 minutes later into the conversation, oh, can you do this for me? Just be straight up to people. Just be genuine. And that's kind of the most appreciative thing. So when you start getting into everything, just reach out to some people and just straight up ask them, hey, I really want to get into this. Can you help me? Maybe have an opportunity or know somewhere I can go. And they'll answer you 99% of the time. But if you message somebody saying, hey, I have a question, they won't answer you ever. So just be straight up with people. Ask for opportunities if you can in a respectful way. And then once you get that one opportunity, no matter how big or how small, even if it's like some really small show, which I used to do a ton of back in the day, because it was just fun for me. I met so many people who then went to do bigger things, and because I was nice to them and I became friends with them, eventually they kind of paid the favor back. So when you work with everybody, just be nice to literally everybody you work with. That's like the number one goal in my opinion. And yeah, I guess that's the number one thing I'd say. Just network by being networkable, by being nice to be networked with, I guess. That's kind of the way I could say.
Can definitely catch back up to you as well. Like you'll have first impressions of someone because someone else will have told you. Like it goes both ways. And then you actually meet them and you're like, that's not true. Like this is how I sort of see them as a person. Look, maybe I can somewhat understand your perspective, but it's different for everyone. And I think that's how you've got to approach it as well. Also, you'll form your own opinions on someone, but don't hold on to them too closely at the same time. Because I have to
people
say,
have bad days.
there are people I've been wrong about in the past as well.
Same.
Like first working with them, I was like, I didn't massively rate that, and then I'll come back to a show 3 months later and be like, this is a completely different person that I'm working with, and I can say that about myself too. So, just open-mindedness, but also like be yourself. I think everything that Jakub said is really important.
Yeah, for me, it's mostly about I prefer if people have like the passion for the product rather than necessarily, if there was somebody to come in and like work with me, I wouldn't mind if they weren't skilled enough and they were still training, as long as they had the passion and the drive to do it. So I'd rather take somebody like that any day over somebody who's very skilled and not nice to be around, because
The
if you're going to
hunger
be
for
working with
clout.
people, yeah, exactly. If you're working with people who are not nice to be around and you're going to be with them for like 12 hours a day for like a month in a row, you do not want to do that. And in production, when you're sitting like in a small room right next to everybody the whole time, if you're not nice to be around, you're going to be the first person to go, no matter how good you are. So I guess that's kind of the one key advice. Just get your first opportunity, be nice to everybody, and get invited back. Because,
Sweet.
I'd say that's kind of the key thing.
Awesome. Right. I can only echo what you just said, Jacob. It made total sense. And I think with all the context you've given us today, a lot more things about why you are you make sense also. And it's kind of, it's totally so much better to know you that much deeper. Yeah.
I once really wanted to get some Greek food, so I flew to Greece for 40 euros just to get some food, and I flew back same day.
Pavlos'
No, you
face
didn't.
is
Cost me 40
lighting
euros.
up at the
No, you
thought.
didn't.
I did.
From
I went
Poland?
to Athens. No, from Nottingham. East
No,
Midlands
you
Airport.
didn't.
East Midlands Airports to Athens. It was like 4 hours, 50 minutes flight. So I flew there in the morning. Then I took the train to the center, next, kind of close to the Parthenon. And then I had like some food there. It was like this really nice place that had a lot of like famous people who visited there. I had some of the gyros and the grappa that this guy gave me.
Yeah. No. Sweet.
And then I flew home.
Well, that's Jacob, everyone.
And it only costs 40 euros. It only costs 40 euros. So anybody can do it.
It's true.
It's brilliant.
And this is the same guy who says, if you want a favor, or if you can do me a favor, I'll pay you in kebab. So 2 and 2, we've got the
yeah, I also
whole
do that.
thing.
We should do more events
together.
in Greece, you know?
Yeah.
No
So-
events are happening in Greece. It should be happening.
Now, because I am full time and I can't really work any other productions, every time I get a job, I normally refer it to a friend, and I take a fee of a kebab.
I love it.
So anytime I refer somebody some work, I'm like, okay, yeah, now you just have to order me a kebab.
Well,
I don't yeah.
Sounds like there's another tip to getting into production in esports. Be Jacob's friend. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. This has been an absolutely insane episode. I loved it, every second of it. Thank you very much for joining us, Jacob. And yeah, thank you for everybody joining us as well. Yes, below for the visual listeners, for the visual
and
watchers.
The audio
it's
watchers.
at Skill Issues Live on all of our platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter/X. And again, for audio listeners, at Skill Issues Live. Give us 5 stars rating on Spotify. Spread the love. Make sure more people can learn about this podcast and all the awesome people that join here. We do this because we like it. We enjoy talking with people in the industry, and we love talking about games and esports and nerding out. So yeah, if you guys are also that gamers or people that want to learn more about the industry, you know exactly where to be. But again, thank you for joining in, and we'll see you again in the next episode.